Welcome to Criminal Law Video Presentation number 7. This will be the beginning of several video presentations on criminal homicide. The presentation that you're about to hear will discuss murder and intentional killings. Today, in most jurisdictions, murder is created by statute. Just every jurisdiction has its own murder statute, many of them based on common law murder, and several others based on model penal code principles, as you will shortly see. The common law murder statutes vary greatly, and some of them, like the one here presented to you, do not state the elements of murder. As you will see, the Michigan statute plainly says a person who commits any of the following is guilty of first-degree murder. Murder perpetrated by means of poison, lying in wait, or any other willful, deliberate, and premeditated killing. This statute does not define murder anywhere within the statute and merely relies upon the common law definition as created by the courts over the year of murder. In contrast to that, you have what is before you the beginning of a California murder statute. This statute does contain within it the elements of murder, and it states, murder is the unlawful killing of a human being with malice aforethought. And it goes on in the next paragraph to define what malice aforethought is. So this is an example of a statute that lays out the elements of murder. You will see later on when I conduct a brief discussion of the Ohio murder statute, it is a statute based on the model penal code, and instead of containing this common law definition, brings in various model penal code principles and terms of culpability that you will be familiar with. Let's begin looking at common law murder. The elements of common law murder are the unlawful killing of a human being. At common law, the victim had to be alive, and it could not be a fetus. So it couldn't be a fetus or a dead person. And the third element is with malice aforethought. Now, as you will hear me say time and again in class, malice aforethought has no meaning in and of itself. You can't take it as meaning malice, you can't take aforethought. It is merely a two code words for four different mens rea principles. Malice aforethought is the intent to kill, the intent to inflict great bodily harm. It's often termed serious bodily harm. You will also see it as grievous bodily harm. The third element is what's known as abandoned and malignant heart murder. It is a form of reckless indifference to an unjustifiable risk to human life. So it is a high risk-taking form of murder. And finally, you have felony murder. This video will look at the intent to kill and felony murder in further detail. So let's take a look for the examples of these four different kinds of malice aforethought. Now again, I'm going to repeat it. Malice aforethought doesn't mean anything in and of itself. So the first one, pretty easy, straightforward, the intent to kill. The gun holder here says, "There is my professor. I'm going to shoot him to kill him. He failed me on my exam." The intent to inflict great bodily harm or grievous bodily harm. "There is my professor. I'm going to shoot to hurt him. I don't want to kill him." So in this instance, you don't need the intent to kill to be guilty of common law murder. You just need the intent to inflict great bodily harm, and the defendant causes the death of the victim. The third one is abandoned and malignant heart. "I'm going to burn down the law school to destroy my bad exam. I sure hope no one is killed." And here, obviously, the defendant knows that people are in the building. If he burns down the building, there is a high likelihood that someone will die. This, as I said, is a reckless indifference to an unjustifiable risk to human life. The fourth one is felony murder. "This is a stick-up. Give me your money," our armed defendant says. Bang, bang, the gun goes off, the victim falls over, I have been shot, I'm dying, and the actor says, I didn't intend to shoot him. This is, as you will see, felony murder, and it is a form of strict liability murder. So let's begin to look at murder in degrees. Most jurisdictions, if not all, divide murder into degrees. Many of them refer to it as first-degree murder and second-degree murder. Some will even have a statutory scheme where there's third-degree murder. Ohio does not have murder in degrees. There is no first-degree murder or second-degree murder. However, it still divides murder into various sets. There is aggravated murder in Ohio and murder. So it is still dividing up various categories of murder. But when you look at murder by degrees, you will often see in common law jurisdictions and even in others today which retain many of the common law terms, you'll see how it's done. So Michigan, a person who commits any of the following is guilty of first-degree murder. Murder perpetrated by means of poison, lying in wait, or any other willful, deliberate, and premeditated killing. Now we're going to spend some time looking at deliberate and premeditated. And then it goes on to state all other kinds of murder shall be murder in the second degree. So this is not an unusual division. So they will look at what is a highly thought out murder and make that first degree murder, and they will make all other murder in the second degree. So what this does is that only intentional killings, intentional murder, the one part of malice aforethought that is intentional, will qualify for first-degree murder. Now, the real difficulty in working with first-degree murder is to distinguish between intentional, which is part of malice aforethought, also second-degree murder, and deliberate and premeditated. So what distinguishes these terms and lets us use them to create first-degree murder as to distinguish it from second-degree murder, which is only intentional killing without being deliberate and premeditated? Well, a number of things come into play. You will often read cases in this area that talk about time as an issue. Many of the cases will say that no time period is too short for deliberation and premeditation, but they will also say that some time period is necessary. They will also talk about the idea that deliberation and premeditation are a thought process that must be engaged in order to be proven for first-degree murder. And there are many variations on the themes of premeditation and deliberation and how you go about defining them. Take a look in your casebook and read them carefully. The Guthrie case, you will see in a note after Guthrie reference to Morin, which treats premeditation and deliberation slightly differently. And in the reading materials on Twen, there is the Watson case, which further discusses this idea of deliberation and premeditation and the thought process that is necessary in order to distinguish it from just an intentional killing, which would not be, if there is no deliberation and premeditation, an intentional killing in almost all jurisdictions is considered second-degree murder. So let's continue on and look at this. Murder is committed with premeditation and deliberation. This is often what distinguishes second degree from first degree murder, as I've already said. So how do we define these? Well, again, I said you've got to read those cases and look at them carefully. But deliberation is often said to be made the decision to kill in a cool and dispassionate manner, and you will see that there are all variations on a theme in how the courts go about defining this. Likewise, premeditation is reflected on the killing, if only for a brief period of time. So the hallmarks of deliberation and premeditation are a cool, dispassionate thought process that is reflected upon or given a second thought to the killing, and then the actor goes ahead and kills. But again, all of this can occur within seconds or split seconds even, and many jurisdictions will permit this thought process to be almost instantaneous. Now, let's take a look at the Ohio aggravated murder statute. Ohio says no person shall purposely and with prior calculation and design cause the death of another or the unlawful termination of another's pregnancy. Now, what you see here is an updating and a model penal code variation of common law murder. First of all, you notice that the Ohio statute uses the term purposely and does not use the term intentional or malice aforethought. And instead of premeditation and deliberation, it is using the terms prior calculation and design. And we'll talk about in class what these terms mean and how we go about using them. But you see, this is an example of a model penal code influenced murder statute. Okay, so common law murder. Let's take a look at how this works and how to go about thinking about it. So we know that common law murder is the killing of another with malice aforethought. And if you remember, malice aforethought is 4 different states of mind: intentional killing, intent to inflict serious bodily harm, abandoned and malignant heart, and felony murder. In most common law jurisdictions, basic common law murder is second-degree murder. At common law, there were no variations. You didn't need degrees because all murder was punished by death. And the degrees in murder only came about when Pennsylvania decided that it was only going to punish the most serious murders with death, and all others would require imprisonment. So old common law murder, this intentional killing, intent to inflict serious bodily harm, abandoned, malignant heart, felony murder, were then categorized as second-degree murder. And then first-degree murder was where premeditation and deliberation came in. So if you have, excuse me, that's my error. If you have an intentional killing, then you must look to see, is it first-degree murder, premeditation and deliberation? If it's not an intentional killing, then you won't have first-degree murder. So if it is not an intentional killing, you won't have first-degree murder. So it's really a 3-part mens rea analysis. 1, does it qualify for common law murder? And then, is the malice aforethought an intentional killing? If so, you then go up and look to see if there is premeditation and deliberation. If there isn't premeditation and deliberation, but it's an intentional killing, it will be second-degree murder. If they're not an intentional killing, you won't even go to first-degree murder. You will have to look to several of the other elements of common law murder. So if it's no intentional killing, then we leave that out, and then we look to see, is it intent to cause grievous, great, or serious bodily harm, an abandoned, malignant heart, or felony murder? And that's how you work through this analysis, and we're going to talk more about this in class. This concludes the first of 3 video presentations on criminal homicide. As always, remember, you need to go to the TWEN site and take the assessment for this video presentation. Thank you.